committee, and they have a majority on every committee. The Republicans have to play defense in the House and the Senate. We cannot get a bill out of committee that Lowell Barron and Roger Bedford and Hank Sanders and those people don't want out of committee, because they can choose to put our bills on the agenda, or they can choose not to. So they have a distinct advantage as far as the committee process in the Senate and the House, because they have the chairman and they have a majority. They have the lieutenant governor, they have the president pro tem in the Senate, and Roger, who's the president pro tem? Roger Smithman. How quick I forget. I'd like to forget. It's a blessing. Lowell Barron's chairman of the Rules Committee in the Senate. The Rules Committee sets the agenda for every legislative day. We never have a committee. I'm on the Rules Committee. We probably met 3 times last session, and it's really a Lowell Barron committee. The good news, we have a very good candidate running against Lowell Barron. His name is Shadrach McGill. We call him Shad. But he's a very successful young man, very handsome young man, has a beautiful family. And the polls show today that Lowell is up 51-49 over Shadrach McGill. 3 more races. Gerald Dial, and I think you want me to go through some of these districts.
Whatever you think you need to be saying.
Because these people may have some influence and family and friends in some of these districts. Over in East Alabama, Lineville, Ashland, there's a former Democratic senator who's changed party. His name's Gerald Dial. He's a Republican now. He's going to be elected. That'll be a gain for us. Up in Hinton Mitchum's district, we have a guy named Schofield. He's going to win. So those are 2 pickups. Down in Auburn, Alabama, we have a guy named Tom Watley who's running against the incumbent Democrat, Ted Little. Tom Watley is ahead. Up in Madison County, there's an incumbent Democrat named Tom Butler. We have a guy named Bill Holtzclaw, who is military, quit his job at NASA to run for the Senate, correct? Wow. Great candidate. We feel like we're going to win there. Down in the Prattville area, Brian Taylor, who worked for Governor Riley, he's a Republican. He's running against the incumbent Senator Wendell Mitchell. So we have several opportunities to take over the Senate. As I said, we need a net 4, and we could win as many as 3, or we could win as many as 8. So that's where we are in the Senate. Let me tell you why that's important. A lot of the bills that your group stands for never sees the light of day, because the Democrats control the legislative process and have for 136 years. They control the committee system. They control the floor action because of Lowell Barron, who's chairman of the Rules Committee. So they really control the legislative process. If we can take the majority, and we have an excellent chance to do that in the Senate and probably in the House. The House probably has a greater opportunity than the Senate does. But if we do, we control the process. We will be chairman. We will be president pro tem of the Senate. We'll be the majority leader. We'll be chairman of the Rules Committee. We'll be chairman of the Finance and Taxation Committee, State Administration. We'll be chairman of all the major committees, and we will have a majority members on all major committees. But one of the biggest advantages, and don't forget this, because when you go to the polls and decide who to vote for, this is so important. Every 10 years, the legislature reapportions legislative districts and the congressional districts. What that means is we redraw the lines. As population shifts in this state, you have to redraw the lines so every congressman, every senator, every House member represents basically the same number of people. We do that every 10 years. And that's the reason some of the districts in this state are so Democratic, because every 10 years the Democrats have control the reapportionment, the redistricting process. So that is a huge reason why the Republicans need to be in control of the Senate and the House, so we can reapportion it in our favor. That's probably, in my opinion, probably the biggest reason we need to be in the majority. I'm trying to think if there's any other districts that I need to talk about. Have I hit all the highlights? Cullen, oh my gosh. Zeb Little represents Cullen. And, well, I'm not going to say what I started to say about him, but he has a dentist named Dr. Paul Busman. One great individual, in spite of these TV ads that y'all been seeing that Zeb is running against Dr. Busman. But Dr. Busman's up 14 to 18 points in spite of these very negative, hurtful TV ads they run against Dr. Busman. Busman's going to be a tremendous senator. That right now he has the greatest poll numbers in our group. He was at once about 18 points up, and I think he's still about 14 points up with 28 days out. So that'll be a huge pickup, and that'll convert a Democratic district from a Republican district. So I think I've named all of those districts. Scott, am I leaving any out?
Those are the most in play. Probably a couple more.
Kurt Wallace.
Kurt
Wallace.
Who?
Kurt Wallace down in Chilton County.
That's a House member.
That's a House member. Yeah. Scott knows about the House members. He served in the House recently, and I haven't. It's been 1983 since I was in the House. They've had 100% turnover. I'm going to turn it over to Scott, and then we'll be glad to entertain any questions. But I think those are the subjects that Steve and y'all wanted me to touch on, but I'll be glad to answer any questions when Scott makes a few remarks.
Thanks, Jabbo. Jabbo took most of the points I'd like to make. Number one, though, I do want to say how much I appreciate you inviting us and letting Jabbo and myself be here with you tonight. And I do appreciate what y'all are trying to do, what the Tea Party movement is about. I've met many of you at some different Tea Party events around the state, and actually, frankly, a number of y'all are helping with some efforts that are going on right now. I want to tell you how much I appreciate that. But talking about the elections this year, one thing that needs to be noted is this is not a good year to be a Democrat. Now, I understand that Steve said that there's Democrats here and independents here and Republicans here, but since Jabbo and I are both Republican office holders, we're going to be a little bit partisan and kind of tell you where we would like to see things go and why. And Jabbo said some of those things. The interesting thing is Jabbo pointed out what are probably the top tier races for the Republicans in the Senate, where our pickups are most likely. What is interesting, though, this year is if you're a white Democrat state senator, other than Billy Beasley, who's taking a black Democrat state senator's spot, you are not beyond losing. That goes all the way down to Roger Bedford's district, which is the worst district for us in the state. He is running against a gentleman named Jim Bonner, who has no money, no support, no infrastructure. We never would have even thought about being able to play there, and the Republican is down 7.5 points.
Oh, wow.
Any of us with no advertising, I mean, we're talking about having done nothing. That's the environment we're currently in. Now, will that hold up? I don't know if it will or not. But that is one of the reasons that we're doing as well as we are right now. If the election had been held last Tuesday, we wouldn't have had 18 seats. We'd have had 21 seats, Jabbo. And what does that really mean? Some people are sitting here, well, I don't care about partisan politics. I just want y'all to do what's right. And I understand that. But if you listen to the list of the things that y'all say are important to you, adherence to the Constitution, state sovereignty, 10th Amendment, Obamacare opt-out, freedom, responsibility, liberty, all those things. To get those things in the state of Alabama, whether people like it or not, you're going to have to vote for Republicans. And there's going to be people in here that are upset. I understand that. I've spoken to other Tea Party groups a couple of times around the state. That's just a hard, cold fact. And for people who don't believe that, remember what Javo said. We've not been in charge. We don't get to decide. The most important vote your legislator will ever make, your senator will ever make. And you may be from a place, and I've heard this over and over because I've traveled the state trying to help our candidates. I like Senator so-and-so. I'm going to use my name. I like Senator Scott. He's a good guy. Yeah, he's a Democrat, but he's my senator, and I see him at the ballpark. I see him at church. I go to church with him. I bowl with him. My kids grew up with him. He's a fine man. You know what? I agree completely. He's a nice guy. But the best thing that y'all can do for your state in the future is to bring him home and spend more time with him. And the reason is simple. He's going to cast the most important vote on the first day. I guess it's the first day. The session is called organizational session. Nobody pays attention because there's no bills up, no legislation's up. And he gets to decide who he puts in charge of the legislature. He votes for the President Pro Tem, the power structure that's put in place, and they decide what we're going to deal with and what we aren't going to deal with. Let me tell you a great story. This is actually the way it works, and sometimes people need to hear this. You may or may not be pro-life. Well, the way the Alabama legislature has been run, everybody knows they need to go home and tell everyone in their district, this is Alabama, for goodness sakes. I'm pro-life. Right? Everybody's pro-life. Look on their ads. They're all pro-life. They're all for smaller government. They're all conservative. What they used to do is, one year they would let the Senate pass a pro-life bill. And y'all need to thank Mary Sue McCarthy, one of the best pro-life bills we ever passed. She was a sponsor when I was with her in the House. And it's what I thought I had one of the best days I've ever had in the legislature. And I don't even know if I was co-sponsor on the bill.